eat that.
Well, but the orange, but when you have like a strawberry flavor in sweets, it doesn't taste like real strawberries in any way, does it? It's like a completely different flavor than we've all agreed we'll just call strawberry.
Yeah.
I mean,
strawberry flavored is the name of it.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it ought to taste like strawberry then. But,
I mean, grape is kind of like that too to me.
Yeah, grape's another one like that.
Yeah,
it's different flavor, and banana.
Should be live.
I hope so. This is gold.
Well, if you were talking about keyboards, I heard Cherry, and I thought I heard MX or something. I was like,
we're talking about.
And then Natalie said, "Eating. I don't like the way they taste." I'm like, "Do you eat your teacups?"
This is Matt's new Kickstarter. He wants to make edible keyboards, right?
He's very upset that his cherry switches didn't taste like cherry.
You'd be annoyed though, wouldn't you? You would be. I thought you thought we were talking about like Visual Studio Code color themes or something. Like with Cherry, there's all these different color themes. That's fine. No problems.
Or maybe colors of keyboards. Some of the fancy ones have this inner lighting.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want the heat from. Like lights. The LEDs under the laptop keyboard. Why don't we just really ramp them up? Like, forget the processor upgrades in the next version. Just really get those bulbs really hot. Yeah.
So red, heat, blue, cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Orange.
This is a really good way to remind you to take breaks every 25, 40 minutes, whatever your rhythm is.
The more you type, the hotter it gets.
Yeah, or it gives a shock or something.
Oh, this was almost go straight to the pain.
Yeah.
How do I shock somebody?
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'll do an intro. It's time, and we can get started talking about releasing. Everyone good? Everyone ready to go?
Do it.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome to Go Time. I'm Mat Ryer, and today we're talking about releasing. We talk a lot about reading and writing code, but there's nothing better really than actually getting your thing in a real user's hand so that they can use it. It's kind of the point of why we're doing this. So in order to get it to them, we have to release it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm joined by, you won't believe it, Johnny Boursiquot. Hello, Johnny.
Hello, mate.
How's it going?
It's good. I just realized that you're the only person I get to call mate. Like, whenever we're going to show, I'm like, yeah, I feel like saying mate. Hello, mate. How you doing, mate?
I like it. I mean, you should be more friends with more pirates, probably.
Probably.
They're always it. Well, we're also joined by Natalie Pistunovich. Hello, Natalie. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hi.
Welcome. How have you been? What have you been up to?
Keeping my office cold, as we talked about, because I really like working in a colder temperature, and I'm enjoying the last few days of the cold weather. So mainly I've been enjoying some snow and a lot of freezing. Okay. But not when it comes to code, right? Code freezing is the opposite of releasing. That's not what we're here for today.
That's right. That's the opposite. Wow. Well, I hope you can stay warm. I can see you've got your scarf on, which I have no problem with. Well, we're also joined by the creator of GoReleaser, Carlos Becker is with us. Hello, Carlos.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for GoReleaser, something that I use every day. For anybody not familiar with it, maybe you could just give a quick overview. What is it?
Basically, a tool that builds your Go projects to whatever Go S, Go Arch, and everything combinations you want, and creates Linux packages, homebrew, tap recipes, or whatever the name is. Also, snap packages for Linux, deb, RPM, APK, Docker images, and pushes to S3 and whatever other thing you want to, basically. And yeah, I think that's a good wrap up.
Yeah, I use it when I have a Go tool. I use GoReleaser it does the builds for me for all the targets that I want. I just specify it in a config file. And it pushes it also up to GitHub for me, so that it creates the release in GitHub, and it includes the changelog and things like that. So as a tool for, if you're building tools that you release in that way, it's a great choice. Johnny, have you ever used GoReleaser?
No, I haven't. It's I've heard so much about it, and I'm really wanted to come on the show for Carlos to convince me that I need that in my life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I can try to convince you the same way I convinced myself to write it, actually, because I didn't want to keep more shell scripts all over the place. So yeah, it's a YAML file. So, but okay, at least you don't have to copy paste a lot of shell scripts.
And Johnny, you love YAML, don't you?
Let me tell you, I love YAML.
Yeah.
It is a treat every day. I love YAML.
Sounds ironic.
Sarcasm's not Johnny's style. We can take from that he truly loves YAML. So let's talk generally about releasing then. What kinds of processes are there for it? The simplest one, of course, is just manual releasing, which, to be honest, I'll do for as long as I can. I quite like just running a script deliberately to do a release, especially in the early days of a project. How do people feel about manual releasing like that? Do you feel like automating is something you should do early?
Well,
go ahead,
before you answer, Carlos, I want to make sure I'm coming at this from the right reference point, right? Let's frame this discussion a little bit. So what we're talking about is sort of you have your Go project, and you want to get it in the hands of people, right? In the form of the binary, right? The end result, right? Maybe you want to distribute it with Homebrew or APM or whatever. So you need to get that executable, that project, in the hands of folks, right? So is that different? Does it solve a different problem than when I'm packaging up my application? Maybe I have a service that I'm deploying somewhere that's going to interact with a bunch of other services. Maybe I'm using kind of containerization technology, and maybe I'm using an orchestration tool. Maybe I'm like in that environment, right? Like, is that like, what kind of releasing are we talking about? I guess is where I want us to start.
I think it's more about tools, about like web services, for example, like you were saying. I feel like, at least the projects I worked on, I don't usually like create tags for every release, because usually have like a lot of releases every day. Release meaning pushing something to production. So the commit hash is pretty much the release, if you will. So basically just build, create Docker image or whatever you ship it with, and push to production. And that's it. For binaries that other people use, I don't think you need to automate right away if you don't want to. But my goal with GoReleaser was to make it so simple that you can also do it if you want, because you just do GoReleaser and that's it. You don't even need to write any YAML for the first releases, because it implies everything. It's no code.
Yeah, it has kind of sensible defaults, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can configure that if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, having like that ability to wrap up the changelog as well, that's another feature of GoReleaser that I find particularly useful. Because really then what it does is, for anyone not familiar, it goes back and looks at the Git history between the two releases and pulls out the comments. And so that actually gives you quite a good overview of what's changed in that release. It turns out to be quite a good starting place for a changelog. So your tool is very practical. It sort of addresses really practical things. Do you find that is a good approach generally to software? Is that usually how you approach things?
Yeah, I would say I try to solve practical problems most of the time. Sometimes I find some problems to solve that don't really exist, like every software engineer, I think, when I'm bored. But yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So Natalie, what about you? Do you tend to go straight for kind of continuous integration, continuous deployment systems? Or would you be comfortable with somebody just deploys it manually for a bit?
Yeah, releasing and deploying was generally probably one of the biggest mysteries when I started my career, let's say. The coding part was always clear for me. As much as you can have it clear when you come out of university versus a boot camp. So you know lots of concepts, but then you have to go and put them in practice, and that was surprising. But the part of how actually it's being, like what happens in the life of a project after you finish writing the code at a specific time, let's say, has been something that I was in the beginning a little bit embarrassed to ask, but how do people end up using what I write? And then you go to the scary DevOps people, and like, what do you do? What do you mean, what do I do? So releasing has never been something that I've done a lot, let's say. And being a developer advocate is definitely even less on my plate these days, because you do lots of projects, you put them on GitHub, and then you write a tutorial. This is the new way of delivering content. And so I am here, I guess, to ask more questions about what is new in releasing for those people who actually do use this a lot. So Carlos, when you were convincing Johnny to use this, I was also on the being convinced side.
Okay.
You got your work cut out for you, Carlos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
of course, yeah. Sorry. Interesting, Natalie. You're saying that when you're pushing code into GitHub is kind of how you're releasing. If it's open source projects and things, especially if they're that's different with Go modules, because now we are more conscious of actual releases by tagging properly. But that's the other thing that you think about, like what else, what gives us the confidence to release before we get to that point of feeling like we can push this code out. Why do we do that with any confidence? Because that's a big thing. If you release something that then breaks, of course, especially if you've got lots of users, that's not good. So what can we do to kind of make sure the release is good before it goes out?
I think the first thing is having tests, a lot of tests, and running them every time. I think this is probably the most important thing, because if you are testing, probably something is broken and you don't know. If you are testing, probably something is broken and you don't know too, but at least other things you might know when they break. But yeah, I think that's the first part. And the other part is not having like a process that is too hard to follow or that has too many moving parts, because whenever you need to do a lot of things manually, you're prone to make some mistake and do something wrong. So
yeah. And so then with continuous integration and continuous deployment systems, they will often watch the repositories, won't they? So when the pull requests get merged in, or when code gets merged into the main branch, that then triggers some operation which can then go and do that release work. And do lots of people use GoReleaser in that context?
I think so. I actually created it like with that in mind, because if you think about having reproducible builds, my machine is not something like that I can easily reproduce. So running on CI seems to make more sense, either on CI or on Docker container or something that you can reproduce easily. So, and if you look into the GoReleaser documentation, there's a topic there about continuous integration, like configuration examples for Jenkins, GitHub Actions, and a lot of other CIs. So I think most people use them on CI, but also a lot of people run locally to test stuff, or sometimes need to sign something with, and you don't want to put the keys there or something like that. But yeah, I would say probably the majority of the releases are running on CIs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Some of the and looking at the documentation, it seems like you thought a lot about sort of the entirety of the sort of release process, and even for those who have sort of cross compile, maybe you need the binary to ship to a Linux environment, Windows environment, and et cetera, et cetera. The limitations, and I'm not throwing shade at you in any way here, right? Under limitations, you punt hard on Seago.
Yeah, it's because being honest, I didn't want to maintain like a Docker image of everything you need to like cross compile with Seago to whatever OS people are using. So there are a lot of examples like using GoReleaser to cross compile with Seago, and like a lot of Docker images and all that. So I just didn't want to get that into GoReleaser because the scope of GoReleaser, it's already very big. It's already a lot of things to like glue together and make everything work. So I didn't want one more very complex thing together in that. But it's not like officially baked into GoReleaser, but you can use it. It does work given the right environments, let's say.
There are some contributions and recipes, if you will, for doing that out there, which kind of leads me into the sort of the overall sort of the ecosystem, the community around this project. It's got 7,000 plus stars on GitHub. It's been forked 518 times from what I'm seeing here. I don't think I've ever seen a project of this kind forked so many times. So I'm wondering what folks are doing. Is it? Did you build something that is extensible in a way that you can sort of add your own sort of capabilities on top of it, or I'm wondering what are some of the use cases that you hear about when people fork this project? What are they adding to that?
I think some of them are probably pull requests, and the others I don't really know. I think sometimes people fork it to experiment things. I've seen some of cases of that, but if they are forking and like growing another GoReleaser with different capabilities, I'm not aware, so I don't know.
Well, let me change the question. What are some of the pull requests or additions that you've seen that you've accepted from the community beyond the original feature set you developed?
For example, these net packages build, the signing part also was contributed by, I forgot his name, but he was working on Fabio load balancer, I think, at the time. I remember the Fabio load balancer part, but don't remember his name. And also a lot of bug fixes, small features here and there, and like things like that.
So you would consider this project pretty stable then at this point, yeah?
Yeah, I've been wanting to like get a V1 since I don't know 1 year or more ago. But every time I think now it's stable, I find something that I need to change the configuration or something like that, and then I decide to give it more time. So I'm at that point for a while.
It's cool to stay at V0. I mean, look at Terraform. That's been V0 forever.
Yeah. I wanted to like put a V1 so I can start working on V2 or something like that. I don't know what V2 will look like yet, but I think I would change a couple of things. And I'm kind of eager to start hacking on that. But, I promised myself to only start when V1 is stable, because I don't want another like Python V2 versus Python V3 situation.
Yeah.
Would you say that most of the contributions that you're getting is steady throughout the year, or is there any Hacktoberfest spike, or you see spike like when somebody discovers the tool and then like a group of people support it, or no particular behavior in the contributions?
I don't think there are any particular behavior. I've seen sometimes a couple of spikes when like someone famous talk about it on Twitter. Then I see spike on stars, for example, but not particularly on pull requests. Sometimes on niches, but pull requests I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, being a maintainer or a creator of such a big open source project, when you go and interview in companies for your next job, is this something that employer sees as a good thing because you have such good initiative, or is actually something that's potentially offsetting because you might put too much of your time for this? What was your experience?
My experience is that sometimes companies like reach out to me because I have GoReleaser, and I don't know if they see my code or whatever, but they want to talk with me.
Basically, they send contracts your way. They skip all the interview stages.
Yeah, more or less, something like that. Yeah. So
cool.
for me, it has been good. It's a lot of work, of course, but it's nice.
Yeah, there is something you get for free when you think about like working with somebody that has already an open source project, especially if they founded it, because it takes a lot of different things to do that, to go through that process. So I understand why people kind of skip the interview process, because it's sort of like proven all the main bits that people need. That's why I do always encourage people, especially if you're junior, to get involved if you can in some way in open source, because you never know, and the network that you build, the knowledge that you gain from doing it, and also future opportunities, they're very real. So yeah, I do always encourage that. This is a nice example of that.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but the most I've learned about like programming was reading other people's code. So that's you get a lot of code to read for free, basically, on GitHub.
Yeah. So how did it happen then when you released GoReleaser? Was it a kind of slow burn and you had a few people? Was there kind of a quick uptake? And what's it like managing that process?
Basically, at the time I was working on my first Go project. Actually, I was learning Go. I wrote like ZSH plugin manager or something like that. And then I was doing a lot of releases, and I had a shell script, like I said, and I didn't like it. And then I created another project that I don't remember what it was, but I needed the same scripts basically. So I created GoReleaser, which was basically that ugly shell script in Go with YAML instead of environment variables and flags. And then I just posted it on Reddit, and it gets like, I don't remember how many 100 stars in a couple of hours, and a lot of issues and requests. And yeah, and then it was stable for a while, and then someone famous like start using it, and then there's a spike and stable, someone famous, a spike, stable, and basically that's it.
Yeah, and it's lots of different people probably using it in slightly different ways and in different environments and stuff. So I could see how you get a lot of pull requests of that ilk.
Yeah, for example, Hugo uses it, and Hugo uses Seagull actually. And when Hugo started using it, I think it was, I don't remember his name, but I don't know how to pronounce his name also. But his username is @bep, and he opens a couple of issues, a couple of pull requests, if I remember, and found a lot of things to improve. And we kind of like hacked something together on a weekend, and then Hugo starts using GoReleaser, and then there was a spike. And yeah, but I think a lot of it is due to Hugo. So yeah.
I didn't realize Hugo used Seego.
Yeah, I think because of the SaaS part, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be mistaken. I don't remember.
That's cool, but there's someone from that project helped with some changes in GoReleaser, and that's cool as well. It's cool kind of collab. That's kind of a nice example of open source working, where both GoReleaser, the project, and the other project that's kind of doing the work or helping, both are benefiting. I think that's always quite nice. Have there been any challenges with working in that open source world? Like, some people find it difficult saying no to features, but saying no to features is quite important, isn't it? Are there other challenges that you've found?
Yeah, saying no is one of the things. On the GopherCon Brazil a couple of years ago, I actually talked a bit about that, because saying yes is easier, but it comes with a lot of burden to maintain whatever you said yes to. And once it's in, people will expect it to be there forever, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that adds up with the other part, which is finding time to do everything you want to do, and including open source and other parts of life and all that. I think that's the hardest thing for sure. And saying no to things helps a bit, but there's still a lot of things that, like bug fixes and things like that you should probably work on them anyway. So it's still hard to find time sometimes.
Yeah, and it takes real time. It does, and that's also worth remembering for people that use open source projects, is the amount of time and effort that goes into them. Definitely is great. But generally, has it been quite a positive experience for you then, open source?
Yeah, I would say this.
The community nice and things.
Sorry?
Are the community all usually nice, pleasant and all that?
Yeah, I don't remember having to deal with anyone like it was rude or whatever. Everyone was ever super nice with me. So yeah, I have a good experience with that. So it's nice.
You mentioned a little bit that when you wrote this basically when you were starting using Go, and in the beginning you introduced this project as kind of automating everything. In my mind, automating everything means like automation Python, right? But somehow everything DevOpsy is actually in Go. Did you choose intentionally Go for this? Did you just use Go because you were using the language at the time? What was your thought process of this choice?
I used Go because for several reasons, because the other languages that I was working with before was basically Java and Ruby, and neither of them seemed right to me. And my shell script was already very complex, so I kind of wrote shell script out, and it was meant to release Go project. So I thought it also makes sense to write it in Go. So that was basically my thought process at the time.
And then you found out Kubernetes and Docker and everything is written in Go, and you're like, yes, I made the right choice.
I knew about that before, actually. I started as a software engineer, software developer, whatever, many years ago. And for a while, I was working as DevOps, SRE, and all that stuff.
Yeah, so Johnny, when at your place, how do you do releases? How do you manage releases? What does a release mean in your job?
You said about my place. I'm like, at home? Oh, yeah, we really I release my kids outside all the time. It's fun.
Denver, the breaks.
Well, we have, as you'd expect, with a company as large as we are, as Salesforce and all the sort of other companies that we've acquired over time. Everybody sort of comes in. Every team comes in with sort of their own ways that are customized, right, for their build pipelines and the things that they need to do. You throw in there compliance things, security things. I mean, these things can get really, really complicated. So for some, in some cases, a tool as simple as GoReleaser could work just fine. In other cases, just doing a Go build and getting the executable, because you know exactly where it's going to go, how it's going to run, everything, you know, everything about it. You control that environment quite well. You can go as simple as that. The only thing you might need maybe is just a make file to help you with, you know, triggering builds and whatnot. So it varies so much, like in an organization as big as ours. So it's one of those things where truly it is, because we have access to so many of these tools, it is truly a matter of what is it that I'm building now, and how do I need to get it from my computer, right, to where it needs to be running, right? So it's pretty much you kind of have to make that decision. Sort of you know, you can't ignore that, making that decision, saying, well, we usually do things this way for this particular class of software. We usually do things that way for this particular class of software, right? So there's some archetypes, right, that we follow, but there's no one size fits all. That just can't be.
So is each team responsible for their own releasing?
Yeah, at Heroku, in which I don't think is going to be a surprise for many folks who are familiar with Heroku and how Heroku does things. But teams follow sort of a total ownership model, right? That they own the software they write, they own the delivery of that software, and they own the operation and health of that software. So if the thing breaks at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're on call, well, your team is responsible for it. So you get up and you take care of it, kind of thing, right? So and that works. You know, basically that's part of the Heroku culture. You know, that's something that kind of we're proud of. It's not perfect. No no system, no design, no approach is perfect. Everything has its pros and its cons. But yeah, like you know, we have our own sort of release tooling. Yeah, we sort of consume our own dog food as well. So you know, if you're familiar with Heroku at all, you'll know that basically there's release pipelines. You can promote things from environment to environment and things like that. So we consume our own dog food in a lot of ways too. So, but you know, there's no sort of strict mandate that it be done a particular way. I think there's enough autonomy, there's enough trust with each engineering team that you know, every team finds the right way to release a particular piece of software, because no two team does exactly the same thing across the board. Some things are common, but it's on a case by case basis.
Yeah. So is that something you have to push back against all the time, or is that just it already accepted everywhere? Because it's very common, isn't it, to see these people all doing the same thing and really having that desire to want to solve that once for them, you know?
You remind me, I've given a whole talk at QCon on the whole sort of the dangers of introducing, or the challenges rather, of trying to introduce some sort of a common layers, right? This was in the context of SRE, but basically the challenges of trying to introduce common layers of tooling and practices and things like that across teams, especially when everybody's sort of being releasing software their own way, the way that makes sense for their teams and what they're building. So whenever you need to sort of introduce something that sort of crosses, you know, team boundaries, it can be challenging, right? Because, you know, teams are often under deadlines and they need to, you know, ship something, and all of a sudden here you are coming and says, hey, how about we settle on GoReleaser, right, for all the things, and then the teams that haven't been, you know, using it or haven't seen a need for it, now they start looking like, you're like, we've got stuff to ship, man. Like, we don't need to, like, this, our build pipeline right now, it works just fine. We don't need to do that. But here you're like, well, if we do that, we can standardize. Everybody can be using the same thing. It'll be perfect, right? And then, nope, that's usually not the way it goes, right? And as we all know at this point, it's not always a technology decision, right? Sometimes it's their team dynamics. There's a sort of a business requirements. There's deadlines. There's features that need to be shipped. There's operational concerns. A lot of cross-departmental, like the icky, gooey people side of things, kind of often, you know, is the barrier, right, to get, you know, technology adopted.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing to hear that. It's actually really interesting to hear the insights, what it's like there. But I think it's a good lesson, and the thing about you talk about those common layers as well, because that also applies in code with abstractions. Like you could, if you try and do those abstractions too much, you can easily overdo it, or too early, you can easily do the wrong kind of thing. And GoReleaser, in a way, abstracts some of the other tooling underneath it, doesn't it? So did the design of GoReleaser change much from when its initial version, over time?
Not much, but a couple of times, yes. I remember one particularly big refactory, which was very early on, to basically start using context and passing information through context from one pipe to another. It's called pipe internally, like upload to S3 as a pipe, building is a pipe. So the pipes talk to each other through a context, basically. Before it was like sequentially calling every pipe, which wasn't a pipe at the time, but basically calling several functions, and I think they were messing with global variables or something like that. I don't recall correctly. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest one. But I think the hardest part about abstractions is actually the interface for the user, or in GoReleaser's case, the YAML file, like how the YAML file should look like for Docker, for example. I mentioned Docker particular because I changed it like 100 times already. And 100 times is a lot. It's not that much, but I changed it a couple of times. And that's the hardest part for me, at least, because other software like Docker also changes. And then sometimes the abstraction I made that had a lot of things I thought were granted and are not granted anymore, or something like that. And then I have to change things.
Yeah. That's the thing. You are abstracting those concepts. That is a hard thing to do. I mean, to do it well is very difficult. And to be honest, I mean, I've been using GoReleaser for a long time, so I don't want people to think that means this thing's changing all the time and not stable. It really does feel stable. It just kind of works. And I think you'll really like it if you are releasing Go tools. In particular, then it's I can say, very easy, very good. So do you feel like it's settling down then, this abstraction? Do you feel like if you get in there?
Yeah, I think so. Recently, I think the only change is like adding more stuff, which is kind of okay. Like, for example, Snap we didn't have all the configuration possible on our abstraction, so now we're adding more things. Docker manifest had some changes recently, so also this is like kind of alpha, trying to make GoReleaser create Docker manifest for you in a easy way that you can also customize the way you want if you need it. But it's pretty much stable. The core parts haven't been changing in years, I think.
Do you use GoReleaser to release GoReleaser?
Yeah, GoReleaser releases itself, which with the version it's built and it's using to release it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
you don't even have to write the code; it just writes itself.
Yeah, basically, like when I'm releasing GoReleaser, it just like run the tests, build, etc., and then it runs like go run main.go and releases itself with the version that's being released. So that's it. So
it releases itself with itself. It's not the previous version you have installed. It's the version. Well, that's one way to dog food, I suppose, if that fails.
That was the idea. Yeah, to make sure it works, it releases itself. So if something is wrong, it will probably fail at some point.
Yeah. Wow. It's so meta, and it gets that weird. It's like Inception.
So what are your recommended best practices for yourself that when you are following when you are doing this release? surely you develop the whole system over the time, other than seeing if it fails or not.
I think it depends on the project for some things. I don't know. I have to think about it. I actually don't have like a list of.
Do you have some sort of a thing you always do when you release the new version of GoReleaser with GoReleaser?
No, I just run the tests, which the CI does, and that's it.
Because if it says something, then if it says it's fine, you can trust it.
Yeah, it has a lot of tests, so I can say I can trust it. There are some bugs that sometimes I zip through, and then I add a test for that, and then it's covered for the future versions. But
that's definitely a serious vouch of confidence.
Yeah, but it has like, I think 90% of coverage or something like that.
It has what? 90% of what? Sorry.
Test coverage.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting subject. Because a lot of people, obviously, you've got a percentage, you've got a metric, you've got a thing to push towards. What do you think 100% test coverage is a good idea or not? And if not, why not?
That's a trap. Watch out, it's a trap.
Yeah, I'm going to undo all the job offers when you say, don't worry about testing everything.
I don't know. I don't think 100% is something you will aim for every project. I think for libraries, it makes sense. But for binaries, for example, some things are very hard to test, like closing files, like handling errors and closing files, for example. It's very hard to test that. So it's very hard because of that. It's very hard to get to 100%. So I don't think it's worth like investing that much time just to get 100%.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah. Does anyone else disagree with that? Maybe we should save this for unpopular opinion. I mean, I think that's just good thinking, genuinely. Like, that if the tests give you enough to give you the confidence, if you over test and you want to make a tiny change somewhere, you can't. You have to go and then update the tests. And often in that over tested environment, multiple tests are failing as well, because things get you end up repeating yourself a lot in the test code. So I'm with you. I think get some good. It's really the quality of that test coverage, not just the quantity of it. But
if you could measure confidence on the test suite, I think that should be the aim, not like test coverage itself. The confidence you have in the test suite, that should be what you aim for, I think.
It's a good point. Yeah, maybe we could use the cameras to look at the engineer that does the push, see how confident they're looking.
Yeah.
Them. This one looks like a coward. Stop the release.
Yeah, and you can't manually test anything. You just go test and push to production if it passes.
That's the confidence. Well, you see, that's it. I mean, but if your tests are the promises of your project, if they cover all those promises, then you really can do that. You're not saying anything extra. Anything else is undefined, and there are sometimes, you get into problems there where people start to rely on this undefined behavior that's just emerged. Yeah. But yeah, I think so. I mean, if you've described your intentions in your test code, you should be able to run the tests and deploy happily. Yeah, that's how I do it.
So I want to pull on a thread because this has been bothering me for some time. Not you specifically, Matt. You haven't been bothering me, not for long at least. Here's the thing, though. For something that is seemingly so quantitative, we do have very qualitative way of measuring it, right? So we talk about sort of a confidence in tests and sort of a how much is good enough. Like, we can't come out and say, well, it must be 100%, right? And if we say, well, it could be 100%, but some of those tests are so brittle that you might as well not have 100%, right? Like a vast sort of a array of reasons why you should or shouldn't, or but it's all very subjective. Like it's like, what is the confidence level in a test. Well, that's a very human thing, right? My confidence level may be higher than yours, right? So like what is the, should we just get together and decide what our collective sense of confidence should be for something? If I told you my very critical to you package, right, is 50% covered with test, but I'm very confident in that 50%, would you put that in your mission critical project?
Yeah, I would, because I trust you, John. I will release anything you tell me to. But
I will write tests for the behavior that depends on your library, probably.
add some tests.
So you'd write the test to ensure that my stuff is tested, or you could open the PRs. That might be the simplest way.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, actually, if you want to report a bug, a PR with a failing test is a kind of great way to explain that
That's
bug.
golden. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. When that's very rare, but when that happens, it's just so great. You just run it, you see the failure. There's no ambiguity in the language because you're talking in code at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's a nice tip. If you can use a failing test to prove your point, please do so.
It's even better if you actually have the fix for that failing test as part of the PR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, that's true. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes people are using the code in an unexpected way, or a way that they shouldn't be using it, and it's not really a. That's the thing. It's about kind of taking some of that ambiguity away. But yeah, if there's a simple fix for something, then that's the silver bullet, isn't it?
Does it mean that when you take a new library that you find, you actually run tests locally before you start integrating it and then running tests for your whole project?
Oh, that is that is going to put a lot of us to shame. Johnny, all the things you import.
Look at how I'm punting this. You can't see it, but on my screen right now, I'm punting over to Carlos.
So this failing test that you mentioned, where would it be failing because you took the library, you integrated into your code, you ran your code, you tested your code, not that library, and your code was the one that behaving unexpectedly. So that's how you came to this, or did you test that library that you imported, not for obviously everything, but for maybe that 1-2 things that are really important for you in your project?
Yeah. So for me, I'll say having the test code in a different package in Go, which is some people like to do this, some people don't, but you can have your test code alongside your normal Go code in a different package. And that means you're then using your own Go code as an external package. So you have to import the package, you're using it kind of as a third party is going to use it. So in that world, the test code and the user's real code is the same kind of environment. And that's one of the advantages of doing that, because you are operating very closely to how users are operating. So I always quite like that, because it helps also with, like, you get to really see the API footprint that you're building, especially if you do TDD stuff and you see the little IDE drop down and tells you all the options. That's a very nice way to get a sense of the API that you're designing and thinking about, is this going to be kind of confusing or easy or whatever. But yeah, the point about the testing, that's very nice when the user's code looks like your test code, because it's, it also allows them to like copy and paste it and things like that. Christian on Slack, Gophers Slack, and by the way, you can join in the conversation there. Christian says, GoReleaser is one of my favorite tools in the entire Go ecosystem. Thanks for working on this, Carlos.
Nice.
I'll read that out. It's nice. Got nothing nice to read about anyone else. Sorry.
Okay.
So, do you actively kind of spread the word about GoReleaser? Do you do anything to try and get people to find out about it?
Not really. I think the only things I did was more in the beginning, like a post to Reddit, and I made some stickers. and like leave it at GopherCon Brazil and some Go meetups. And yeah, that's it.
Was it?
Sometimes I write something about it on my blog, like about new features or things like that. But I never spend much time thinking about marketing or whatever.
You did it, man. Like the single biggest thing you can do for your project. It doesn't even have to be like finished. It doesn't have to be like, you can just have an empty repository. But if you have a good like logo and some stickers, I mean,
my wife designed the logo actually.
That's awesome. Make it a family project, family activity. But yeah, you have yourself like a good sticker, a good design, a good brand, a good logo. Man, your project's bound to skyrocket, you know?
Yeah, the logo helps. I think it helps for sure.
Oh, the logo is the little gopher on the rocket. Is that right?
Yeah, because it's really isn't. I don't know, because people sometimes like put like the rockets before releasing or something like that when talking, and so
that's great. But Johnny's right, actually. A logo and a good name, and GoReleaser really just tells you what it does, so you can't really argue with that. So yeah, that does help.
Unless you put a pause, an awkward pause in there, like
I was about to say,
release her. Like,
there's
a lot of ways you could.
There is a black metal band variant, GoReleaser.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
Some people read it that way.
Get a lot of metal fans trying to use GoReleaser, and they're like, "What is this, man?" Like, metal kind of.
Why is there some sort of furry animal thing? What is this? This is not metal.
Yeah. Where's the screams?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you don't have good test coverage. That's where you get your screams from. So you're into metal, aren't you?
Yeah. When you say screams, it was a little bit screaming, hurting my ear because growling. I was trying to make a joke about hurting the ear and the screams, and
yeah.
I hope it went across.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. We've learned a lesson. Yeah, not screams. Johnny, you said that.
Carlos, the project can be supported by anybody who likes it. And there's several ways to do this, right? There's GitHub sponsors, there's backers, there is the open collective. What can you tell us a little bit about which one is you like more? You like all of them? What's a good way to support for everybody who wants to show their appreciation?
The Open Collective is mostly like if you want to support the project itself, because that money is spent mostly like on stickers, buying domains and things like that. Buying domains, actually, just renewing the only domain it has. And if you want to support me as a developer that works on GoReleaser, then I like GitHub sponsors better, because I can just like transfer the money to my bank account and do whatever I need or want to do.
Don't want to get into
you can go and buy some personal domains.
Sorry.
Yeah, for other projects that I won't have time to work on.
Sorry, Matt.
No, sorry. I was just saying we don't want to get into any tax conversations.
Oh no, please.
and you're gonna put that on the record in the show. Jeez, Matt.
GoReleaser.com is the website. So if you want to check it out, it is a very cool website, and you can see the little rocket gopher in there. Well, I tell you what, everybody, it's that time again. It's that special time for unpopular opinions.
Da, da, da.
Sometimes we have the music that plays now, sometimes not. This time, I'm guessing not.
We can all contribute some sound effects.
Yeah.
I don't know
what you got, Carlos. Carlos is like, these people are weird.
Yeah, I forgot. Professional.
Okay, so should I start?
Please. What do you have an unpopular opinion for us, Carlos?
I have a couple, but I don't think they are so unpopular. Like, for example, I don't think we need generics, but I think this was talked about the last episode. So I will go with the Go mods are great, but I don't think most people will do that V2 folder thing for major bumps or whatever. I think I get it why they ask you to do that, but I don't think people will do it. I won't do it for sure because it's already hard to keep one stable version. A lot of stable versions is not going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. What will you do then if there's a second major version of GoReleaser?
You can just edit your Go mod file and put a /v2 in the end of the first line. I think I don't remember the keyword there, but just doing that already works. I think the only thing that doesn't work if you do that is other dependency management tools that are not Go modules. But honestly, I don't care that much about that.
So you know, you're not the only one who thinks along those terms, Carlos. We have entire projects that have, rather than going to a V2, they've changed names, they've rebranded, they've created like new vanity domains. I mean, yeah, people are going out of their way to not have to go with the whole V2 thing. Which
pushing the boundaries of Semver there. Like, this is version 1.1 billion.
Exactly. I mean, that is a signal, to the Go team, I guess. But yeah, at this point, I think that ship has sailed. Modules is what it is, and you might get some fixes and updates and even features at some point. But yeah, it is the way of the land. So.
Yeah, at least we don't need GoPath SRC to put projects there anymore. That's a good thing for sure.
Well, that can be my unpopular opinion then, because I really liked that. I liked being able to just being told where to put things on my hard drive. It's one of the things I struggle with in my daily life. So they were like, no, you have to have one folder, put everything in there. I was very happy with that. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad either, but for new people starting to learn Go, it was kind of hard to explain.
That was the hardest part. Basically having to explain. Imagine trying to teach someone how to program and then having to explain the Go path first. I mean, it was.
Put the stuff in this folder.
Like, why? Well,
I want to clone on my desktop.
Yeah. Looking back on that, Johnny, that's a tough class. They're like, wow, I can't have it in any folder I want.
I know.
This is computers and it's rules. You can't just have anything anywhere.
Like, just do as I say.
Yeah, that's why your training turned into more of a boot camp, isn't it?
Exactly.
I don't want to word out of you maggots.
Yeah. Do it. Stop asking questions.
That's the approach to GoPath, teaching GoPath, Johnny, by Johnny Boursiquot.
Yes.
And is available to hire for training, by the way.
That is true. Jokes aside, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. No, and he's a great trainer. I don't get any kickback from saying it's brilliant. I've been in one of his classes, so I do recommend him if you get the opportunity. Okay, any other unpopular opinions, everybody? Anything?
I have one that is a little bit related to Go, and it's from the reviewing the applications for the diversity scholarships for GoForCon Europe, which just closed yesterday. And it also a little bit contradicts a previous popular opinion that I expressed here. So what I said one of the previous times was that just try things that even if you're maybe a little bit scared or not sure about. And then we saw some surprising applications by people who don't associate themselves with any minority or diversity groups and also have decently paying jobs and apply for a diversity scholarship. This is an example of something you should not necessarily go for.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, Johnny. I hand all the sensitive ones over to Johnny. Johnny, what do you think about really difficult?
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree. So at the risk of annoying a few people out there, right? It's easy to actually. The reason I'll say this is because this is something that a conversation I've had with some colleagues and friends recently. That it's easy to sort of feel resentful, right? When you see that there are opportunities that are sort of being created, opened up, all right, to people who don't look like you, right? If you happen to be white or male, or usually white and male, it's easy to be resentful. And obviously I've never been a white male, so I wouldn't know exactly how that feels. So what I can say is that I've been on the other side of that, where there hasn't been any opportunities and there hasn't been any sort of any call outs or any sort of doors that I could see, that I could even imagine being open, right? Where that made the journey sort of a more difficult than it could have been, right? So it's hard to sort of decouple ourselves, right? These emotions that we feel, like when we see those opportunities being created that we can't apply for or we can't be a part of or take advantage of, because others are have basically, these things are being created for others, right? It's very hard to sort of see that and sort of appreciate it, right? Sometimes I get that, but for those folks, the only thing I can say is that basically the field's been the way it's been for so long. These efforts are trying to level the playing field, right? We don't all start at the same starting point in life, right? Or in our communities or our environments, or we don't all start at the same starting point, right? So when you compare yourself to somebody who's so far behind you, you can't even see them, or you don't even realize that they're there. This is what these programs are designed to do. They're not giving them an unfair advantage. They're really sort of saying, hey, here's a door that is open, that perhaps has never been open for you, that if you put in the hard work and effort and persistence, you can walk through it, right? It's not a handout. It's not an exclusionary thing. We're not trying to sort of a discount from you to give to others. That's not what that's about. It's about creating opportunities that don't appear for a whole class of people that don't look like you, right? So again, it's something that you kind of have to look inwards for. So that's the one thing I'll add to that, only because, again, I'm going to get off my soapbox here, but it's something I've been thinking about recently, trying to empathize and put myself in the shoes of people seeing these things and trying to, envision, well, if I saw that and they told me I couldn't apply because I'm a white male, how would I feel about that, right? So I just wanted to add kind of a flavor to that and sort of, really just say, hey, I get it. I understand. I recognize it, right? I acknowledge that it's going to feel a little harsh and sort of unfair, but like look at it from a broader, with a different lens, from a broader perspective. That's it for me.
Well said. Very good.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, Johnny. I think you don't want to get into it too much, but yeah, I think that is what some people think. They see programs that are correcting something and it feels like discriminatory against them, and it's just like, yeah, I think you're right. You have to look at it in a bigger picture. Yeah. Very generous of you though, Johnny, mate. I'd have been much more annoyed if I was saying that. I was like, what? It bugs me, by the way, when people do that, but yeah, know what I mean. Very diplomatic. Well, I think that might be all the time we have, I'm afraid. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. And as Christian on Slack said, thank you for GoReleaser. It's a great tool. Hopefully you'll come back and join us on GoTime another time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, and
Thank you,
thanks
Carlos.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. And also Johnny Boursiquot, Natalie Pistunovich, and
Mat Ryer.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, let's just say, if there's anybody that feels like they're part of a minority in tech that wants to come on GoTime, get in touch with one of us on Twitter. We'll say our Twitter names, because we'd love to, if we can help in some way, then we'd love to do that. I'm at Mat Ryer, MATRYER. Johnny Boursiquot, what's your Twitter name, mate?
I'm at J Boursiquot, so I'm not going to try and spell it for you. You can probably just look me up and then click on the link. It'll be easier.
How are they going to look you up? Just type Johnny and then spend half an hour guessing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Natalie, you can't talk. Pistunovich, come on.
No, and that's why my handle is at Natalie PAS.
That is easy. So here's a trick though. If you search Golang Johnny, I should be at least on the first page.
You're Golang Johnny.
I'm Golang Johnny. You didn't know?
Name. Why are we?
I'm like literally I'm like the first search result.
It's worth mentioning that there's more than one way of spelling Johnny.
Oh, maybe I should spell that one. JOHNNY.
Oh, Golang Johnny. I can't believe that you're Golang Johnny, mate. I can't believe it. I feel like you should be in like a band in the 20s.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's amazing.
Carlos, what's your Twitter name while we're at it?
Mine it's at Carlos with 2 A's and a 0 in them. It's very weird, but
yeah. If you get no followers, it's your own fault. I have a really complicated username.
That's a template for your hacker name.
Yeah, you sure that wasn't a password?
Yeah. I can say my password.
No, don't say it. Yeah.
My mama told us.
Me privately. Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Music plays. Normally it's right. It's basically
something like that. Right.
And we have to wave like at the end of the 90s or 80s like sitcom. We're all like
so much time traveling, 20s, 90s. Like we're in one division.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Johnny Calhoun. John, can you believe he's Golang Johnny? What does that make you?
I laughed because while he was saying that, I searched Golang Johnny the other way, and it automatically just searches for the JOHNNY one. So if somebody is the other Johnny, they're getting.
I don't know if this is true for everybody, but for me, I searched Golang John, Jon, and the first thing is calhoun.io, John, which is your website for learning about Go. So you're
That's
Golang
true.
John.
Golang John and Golang Johnny. Look at that.
Best day.
Yeah, I'm not Golang Carlos.
Golang Collar.
Just
Wait, are you
When you're
searching
writing,
in
you have to put
something
your
like
name and no
incognito, or are
response.
you using
incognito,
your Google history?
Yeah, I thought about it was my own personal history affecting the results, but yeah, I did incognito, same thing.
Does incognito end up using does your IP address affect that?
I don't know what incognito mode is. No,
Nobody
No, I
knows.
mean incognito would you wouldn't have your cookies and stuff, so it shouldn't be your profile and that stuff. But I didn't know if I don't know if Google keeps track of
they do.
IP address. I'm
watching
assuming
Yes.
Right now.
I'm sure they do. No, but you have the option in incognito. It doesn't carry your personal profile settings for search. So you can tell your search even under your own profile to disregard like my own personal history or something like that. But yeah, in incognito, it doesn't carry over. So
I searched myself in incognito DuckDuckGo, and I found out a website that's called Knitter, and it has the same handle as mine, and it has the same bio. And it's very confusing.
Wow. That I'd look into that.
That's like a weird ripoff of Twitter because it looks the same, but it's black and orange.
Okay, so Golang Natalie actually takes you directly to your profile, Natalie.
Which one? To the Twitter?
To the Twitter account.
This is what I found now. I shared it on Slack, on the Zoom chat.
All right.
This is completely bizarre. I have never seen this website.
This is still alive. We're still a live thing, by the way. And everyone's just watching.
If anybody knows what is knitter, please tell me.
Yeah. Let's get to the
If
bottom.
anybody heard
Honestly-
of this website before.
Part of me almost doesn't want to know on the chance that it's something we shouldn't be discussing live.
Oh, this might be.
It looks like Twitter, but
Oh,
it's just different colors.
Yeah, it's like a clone. Maybe somebody created like a Twitter clone as a sidebar.
No,
or
I think
something.
it's just pulling up Twitter handle. Well,
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
very up to date.
no,
Yeah,
as
it's
in
like
like it's probably
live.
just like a skin. If that makes sense.
Yeah, could be.
But
It's good podcast content, this.
I mean, as soon as I joined, I assumed it was over.
Yeah, that's what we usually do.
That's
Oh,
you know, I
God.
just-
You're Golang John. Don't put yourself down like that, mate. Come on. Is anyone else Golang John? I don't think so. I mean, he's Golang Johnny, which does sound cooler, if we're honest. But Golang John's fine as well.
This is really interesting.
Somebody says
So-
it's a privacy proxy for Twitter. Christian again on Go for Slack. By the way, you can join in the conversation there.
Johnny, I searched Golang Johnny on DuckDuckGo, and you're the first result in your GitHub
What
profile.
kind of sentence is that?
But then after that, it's just a bunch of football players, and I'm not really sure why that's
Why?
the case.
See, that
Goodness.
sentence you said, John, is why non-computer people think we're all weird. Because you've just said, Johnny, I searched Golang Johnny on DuckDuckGo. You just said these words.
Yeah, and they make complete sense.
They make complete sense to us. But what do you think what are they going to think of us listening in?
Okay, if somebody who isn't in tech started listening to the Go Time podcast,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that's their issue.
Welcome. I was going to welcome them, but no,
Well, I mean, you can welcome them, but I mean, like, if they're gonna think I'm weird for
that's your fault.
being nerdy, that's kind of
Yeah. No, be nerdy, mate. I'm not going to go. I'm just saying. You can see it. You can see it from their point of view, can't you? You can see why.
nah.
Yeah.
I'm not empathetic at all. I can't
Aren't you?
understand how other people are feeling or seeing or
Oh, it's psychopath. Are you? No.
no, I'm not.
No. Mind you, that's what they would say, isn't it? I don't know.
But yeah, it's pretty much what you have to say, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, nobody's gonna sell you that gun.
Yeah, true. You have to say that. They're going to say it. It's like if you ask someone if they're Banksy, they say no, but that doesn't tell you anything. Obviously, Banksy's going to say no. He's anonymous. He's an anonymous street artist.
I was gonna ask, what is Banksy?
Yeah, me too.
I'm really disconnected from
Banks.
the popular world.
Oh, he's like a street art kind of anonymous guy who does it's amazing stuff. But
How can he be anonymous if you know who he is?
well, his name is Banksy, but no one knows who he is.
Oh, that's
Banksy's like
that's not
Mary's.
that's not his last name or something. It's just like the handle.
That'd be clever.
Got yeah.
That's
Okay.
his name. It was like no one's thought to ask me. I'm Banksy. You know, and then amazing artwork, and usually like political statements and things. Worth a Google. Anyone that doesn't know, Natalie, you know about Banksy, don't you? He's been to Berlin.
Definitely. He was funnily enough presenting in the mall. His exhibition was presented at the Mall of Berlin, but I'm trying to come up with something witty about him selling this piece art that was immediately grinded and something about NFT, which is kind of like the opposite of that.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Yeah, he had that artwork of was it the girl holding the balloon? And
There's a print of that, I think, yeah.
So
but rigged the frame so that when it sold, somebody activated it and it shredded the artwork because he didn't want it to be sold and it was sold for some absurd amount of money. And so he shredded the artwork.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a delayed, a deferred unpopular opinion. NFT. WTF?
Well, people like owning things.
You know, I've heard NFT, and every time I hear it, I still have to look it up because it just doesn't stick in my head. I
It's
guess in my
weird-
mind, I'm just like, this thing's absurd enough that I don't have to remember it.
non-fungible token. Yeah. Well, we're all tired of fungible tokens, aren't we? So it's
Yeah.
about time someone.
I've got some fungible tokens in my pocket right now.
Yeah.
Like, I view NFTs as a weird thing mostly because I'm in tech and I don't get it. I don't know how a normal person's going to get this. Like, to me, I'm just like, let's go describe to a 60-year-old person what they're buying when they're buying NFTs.
Well, I mean, so I can. So I guess I'm not hip on NFT, at least not yet, right? The same way I wasn't hip on Bitcoin when that first came out, right? So now virtually everybody knows what Bitcoin is. I'm just half waiting for my mom, like a 68-year-old woman to come tell me, hey, can you buy me some Bitcoin, right? So it's like popular now, right? Everybody kind of knows what it is. So maybe in like 5 years or so, NFT is going to be as common as any other blockchain asset. I don't know.
I'm just still skeptical that most of the people who know what Bitcoin is, I don't think most of them could actually explain to you any benefit of Bitcoin that is like a legit benefit. Like, because there's some, like, I've heard people be like, oh, it's anonymous. I'm like, that's not really the case, but okay, nice try. And there's been a bunch of other ones too that just, I mean, I feel like a lot of people are buying it because they view it as like an investment opportunity or something.
Which it could be.
It could be.
Sorry,
but like,
I have to jump on a work call.
Natalie's like, I got work to do.
It is 9:15 p.m., right?
Oh, wow.
She's going to another meeting where they're selling fungible tokens.
Yeah.
There's Natalie.
Bye.
Bye. I think I'm actually going to go too.
Okay.
Before you go, John, the I must say I haven't seen you in a while, and when you jumped on the call, I almost didn't recognize you. I'm like, what? Why is there a bear hosting the show? Like, you're in this brown thing, and you're a bit more furry than last time I saw you. But there's a bear where John should be.
I'm much furrier. My wife keeps yelling that I need to trim up my beard. I haven't done that. I got out of the shower and just slicked all my hair back, and she's like, please don't do that. Look like it's
like a Gordon Gekko style,
I guess. These COVID haircuts are just getting kind of crazy.
Yeah. What are you doing currently, Johnny? Do you shave your head?
Yeah, man. You haven't seen it?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't.
Yep. That's the new stuff. I do it myself. I don't have to go to the barber. Because he got COVID and I don't want to go see him for some time after he's vaccinated. So that's that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, isn't it? Every time you do it, you should give yourself $20. You just pocket and then that's yours then.
Don't forget to tip.
Yeah,
it's a good
I know, right? Yeah. I'm a generous tipper, so I'll double it.
Yeah, but not a PS5. Which is what we did last time. PS5 and an Xbox. Don't need them both. There's different games. There's some exclusive games. Doesn't matter.
Right.
You can't afford it.
All right, y'all.
I just remembered we have to stop our audio recordings and upload them.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. There's some extra bit of gold there for Jared.
Yes, he will take it out. He will enjoy it.
He will enjoy it.
He will. The date is the 16th of March. Right, Carlos, thanks so much, mate. That was great. Good to have you.
Nice. Thanks again for having me here. I wasn't expecting, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good.
All right, so I'm going to end this, but I'm just warning you that when I do end it, you're all going to get cut out.
Okay.